I'm TJ Wary's mother. My view on comedy is that it's completely natural. It's something that he's done most of his life. His father was a funny man, and TJ is, he's surpassed his father's footsteps, shall we say.
Were you into comedy when you were growing up?
Oh yeah, and I'm really funny.
You up on the stage, huh?
It's been talked about. It's been talked about. That's all I can say. In some areas they call me the momager down around Berkeley because I've managed to introduce a couple people to other people, and they get more mic time, and that's what you want, more mic time.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah.
What are you looking forward to with this?
Oh, tonight you mean?
Yeah.
Oh, tonight's gonna be a blast. A blast. TJ's funny. Dave Landau is a good friend of mine, and he is one of the funniest people you're going to find around today. It's accessible, and that's the beauty of this, that they're accessible. We can go to local shows like this and get good talent. That's what we're working on. Better talent, better shows, more fun for more people.
What advice would you give to comedians and then comedians' mothers too as well?
Well, as far as to comedians, write all the time, get behind a microphone as often as you can, and to the mothers, be supportive. Go to the shows, laugh, and support your comedian child.
Have you gone to like a lot of these shows around
Yes,
all over?
yes, oh yeah. From Boise to Las Vegas to Berkeley, Detroit, I mean, Royal Oak. Now it's Davison. Yes, I go to a lot of the shows. TJ has really developed his talent. He works at it. He concentrates on it, and he has his own style, like all of them do. Dave Landau and TJ both come from a kind of tragic past. They have something in common. Their fathers died of cancer when they were just kids. Each boy, Dave and TJ, their fathers died of cancer. So every chance I get to be with them, I enjoy it because they take that pain and they bring it to the stage and bring it out and let everybody see it and laugh. And that's the importance of it.
Where were you born originally?
Pontiac, Michigan.
Like what made you start being a comedian basically?
I was a hockey scout back in the day, and my wife and I moved to Idaho, which is like the worst place on earth, and there was no hockey to scout there. And everybody always told me, like, because I'd make fun of the players when I was scouting, everybody always told me I should try stand-up, so I decided to try stand-up, and it worked out. I started off at open mics and shows around Idaho, and then I started doing contests and festivals to try to get more stage time. And I started working the road when I was about 9 months in. So I worked all over the West Coast, and then my wife and I moved to Indiana recently, so I've been working in the Midwest more.
Is that like where you pretty much do your shows, like in the Midwest?
And now a lot of it's in the Midwest. Sometimes I go like to the South or to the West Coast, but you know, I try to stay home as much as I can. I did a show in Winnipeg, and from Idaho, that was a miserable 3-day drive through nothing. And then you go through Canada and it's more nothing. It's just days of nothing. And then Winnipeg was, you know, it was what it was. I've done shows in Hawaii. My wife's from Hawaii, so we go visit her family, and then I've done shows there. I did a show in Mexico, in Cancun, and that was a lot of fun. They actually have an open mic there with like 5 or 6 comics, and really good scene. It was a lot of fun. It's one of the most fun shows I've done. My style? Dry, low energy. I focus on joke writing more than anything else. Probably dirtier than you'd expect, but I try to do more innuendo than actual filth.
What advice would you give to like future comedians?
my advice, go up and tell your best material, write jokes, and if the crowd laughs, then keep doing it, and if they don't, then do something else.
What made you come to this event?
They invited me, and my mom's originally from Swartz Creek, and so it's a show where she can invite her friends from high school, and like my mom's coming. I think my sisters are coming. My wife's here. I don't know how many more people are coming. You never know. You invite a ton of people, and then as a comic, you invite 100 people and maybe 5 show up. So I'm really excited to do this show. I'm excited to work with the comics that are on the show. I'm really excited to work. I was really excited when Ben contacted me wanting me to do the thing, and it's looking like it's going to be a really good crowd. I can't wait to do it.
Now, other than like you were just invited to, were you? This is for the courts too. Like, what do you want to say about that? I guess. Like, what do you think of that? I guess.
I think it's really cool. Like where I grew up, there wasn't a whole lot of that kind of thing. I played street hockey in a parking lot. You kind of made do. I didn't have equipment, so I would just get hit in the chest with pucks. And obviously basketball and whatnot, it's different. But it's cool that they're going to build courts. And I'd like to play sometime. I'd get destroyed, but it'd be fun to play up here sometime. Maybe next year.
My name is Brent Terhune. I'm from Indianapolis, Indiana.
What made you start comedy?
I would just watch it on TV, and I don't know, I was always kind of a funny kid. I remember my first laugh, and I was like, oh, that's a good feeling, and it was on accident, So, yeah, I started when I was 16 in high school, so I was pretty young, and I would stay up and watch Jay Leno, and he had a monologue, and that's essentially stand-up, and you watch, and I was like, every night I would watch it, and I would remember the jokes. I still remember jokes from 15 years ago that he did. So I thought that was interesting, and then I would end up staying up later and later, and then it was Conan O'Brien, and he would have stand-ups on there as well. So then I was like, I should try this. So I went to my high school, and they had a thing called a coffee house. So it was, people play music or poetry, and I was like, I'm just going to try stand-up. So I did it for the first time, and it went good enough for me to come back and do it.
Did you say like Jay Leno and Conan O'Brien are just like your influence?
Yeah, I would say those guys, and Chris Rock and Dave Chappelle. So it's weird because I like comics that aren't my style at all, Mitch Hedberg is more along the lines of, I guess, what I do, and so those guys I really enjoy. George Carlin and Richard Pryor, of course, but everybody likes those guys.
What would you say like your style would be?
Probably heavy on joke writing and more of an emphasis on writing than performing. I think that's where my strengths are. Self-deprecating, and then I don't know. I like to be silly. If I'm having fun, I like to think the audience is having fun at the same time.
Can you explain what like joke writing is?
Okay.
I think I know what it is, but
Yeah, I would. It's just I have a lot of punchlines. So usually in a joke, when they tell somebody to start out writing, you have the setup and the punchline. So you say, here's this situation, and then here's how I put a twist on it to make it funny. Like a joke that I wrote where I'm from in Indianapolis, there's a highway called 465, and there was a marble truck that was carrying 38,000 pounds of marbles. It got into an accident, and there were marbles all over the highway, but thankfully the truck that it crashed into was carrying a shipment of the game Hungry Hungry Hippos. So that's, you have the facts, here's what actually happened, and then here's the twist at the end. So that's kind of, joke writing, and then you take those little jokes and you kind of form it into what you would call a bit. So it's like, if I had little jokes about substitute teaching, and then I can put them all together to make 5 minutes of substitute teaching jokes.
So were you a substitute teacher?
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, I have an album out. It's called Mr. Turkey, and my last name is Terhune, but of course a lot of people can't say my last name. They've never heard of it, and definitely little kids have never heard of it. So they would say, "Oh, Mr. Turkey," because they don't know what my name is, and they can't say their letter R's. So that's where it comes from, is Mr. Turkey.
What brought you here to this particular event?
I was seen by somebody here that's putting the show together, and just asked to perform, and it's for a good cause. I always love something where you can do a show and then it's, you know, comedy for the courts. So yeah, and a lot of times comedy is just kind of word of mouth. So if they employ, you know, have somebody do a show here and they'll say, I'm looking to do a different show, can you recommend somebody? And that's kind of with comedy, but it's with everything. A lot of people get jobs just based on a recommendation, you know. So that's a lot of comedy, is just kind of, you know, and all in who you know. And if it works both ways too. If you're bad, people are gonna be like, don't hire that guy. So it really works out in your favor if it, you know, if you're good and you're funny and you're easy to work with.
How did Ben contact you?
I did a show in Frankenmuth.
Okay.
Yeah, up here, and I just was hanging out because I was in the area, and I know Dave, and I know a couple of the people on that show. So I just went and hung out, and they said, hey, do you want to do, you know, get on stage? I said, of course. And then Ben saw me here, or there, and then asked me to be here. So, yeah. Like I said, it was a word of mouth type of thing.
What's like the coolest place? Where's like the coolest place you've been to for your show?
Yeah, I've done a couple. I did a prison in Kentucky, so that, you know, I think like once a year they bring in comedians to perform for the prisoners, and we're kind of in a setup like this where we're in a gymnasium and we're mid-court, and then the bleachers are full of like 300 prisoners. So we did a show, and so it was just kind of weird to perform for people, you know, that are in prison. You have to go through the security. You have to leave your phone in the car, and they got to do the metal detector thing. And there's literally one guard watching over 300 people. So you're like, I hope nothing happens, because it'll, you know, they're not going to get here in, you know, in 90 seconds. It's going to take a little while. And another one I did just recently, it was for the show Ghost Hunters. I met some people, and they're ghost hunters, and they have like groups across the country. So if they have a location that they, you know, somebody says, hey, this is haunted, they go investigate it before the actual show goes. So it was kind of they called it a family reunion. So their groups across the country had a gathering in Louisville, Kentucky, and we got to go ghost hunting at Waverly Sanatorium. And I did a show for them, not there. I did a show the night before, and then we got to go ghost hunting with those guys. So yeah, you get to do really fun stuff sometimes with comedy, and then you make a lot of friends. So now when I go to, you know, Tulsa, Oklahoma, or whatever, wherever their group is, I can kind of say, hey, let's hang out.
So you've gone to like Oklahoma, or where else have you?
I mean, I think I counted up maybe 30 states. So I've not done like Hawaii and Alaska. That's on the list. Just I want to go to those places anyway. But I go, you know, all over the place. I've been to LA. I've been to New York City. Some of my favorite places are Louisville, Kentucky. Just I like that town. There's a lot of like cool independent stuff that people do. Walmart's everywhere, but you're not gonna get a certain record store and, you know, everywhere. So Louisville has that kind of stuff. I'm trying to think of where else I've been that I really like. Columbus, Ohio is really cool, and anywhere that has like local stuff that you can't get anywhere else, you know, because everywhere now is so commercialized with the same stores. But, you know, if you find a hole in the wall place, that's what I like.
What advice would you give to like upcoming comedians, or maybe they want to be comedians or whatever?
I would say if you're trying to start out, you write and perform as much as you can. That's essentially, you know, if you're an athlete that's going to the gym and going to practice, you write as much as you can, and then you go take that and you try it out on stage and see what works. And I would also say watch as much stand-up as you can when you're first starting out. See what people are doing that are already doing it professionally, and then just go from there. But the key, I think, is writing and performing. Those are the two things.
Okay, any last note to the viewers?
Go and support local comedy wherever you can. Like tonight, people are coming out. It's for a good cause, but it's also a local thing in your community. So if you're going, you know, anywhere, go support local comedy, because it's much better live.
My name is Tommy Thompson.
Where are you from?
Montrose, Michigan, just north of Flint.
What cities have you gone?
Indianapolis, Schofield, Wisconsin, Stevens Point, so many in Michigan, Ohio, Detroit, Cleveland, Cuyahoga Falls. Yeah, there's a lot of big cities, but mainly just a lot of small bars too. When you're just getting out there, bookers will pick you up through recommendations and referrals, and you end up at a bowling alley on a Tuesday night to 12 people, and you're just living your dream.
What made you get into comedy?
My dad was doing it, and for an Elvis impersonator, and he would open the shows and be like the MC, and then when the Elvis guy would change his outfit, my dad would do some jokes, and this thing's really cool, and then just started watching stand-up and becoming obsessed with it. Started going to clubs and got on stage.
Your big influence was your dad growing up? Or?
Yeah, Dad and my dad and the headliner Dave Landau is my favorite comedian. He's the best. So Dave is awesome. But yeah, Mike Birbiglia is a big influence in me. He's kind of a bigger name. Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, my parents for sure. They're funny people.
I know, like you already said, your dad was your influence, but like what got you to go into comedy? Was it just your dad, or was it?
Well, mainly, and then me and my friends started going to a bar in Fenton, Michigan, and they had comedy on Tuesday. So every Tuesday we would go, and then one Tuesday I did not go, and my friends saw Mike Stanley, who's an amazing comedian in his own right, and they were telling me, "Oh, you missed the best one we've seen there," and so I got hold of Mike's CD and started listening to it. And I'm like, that's what I want to do, is just funny life stories and stuff that happens to you, and just make it funny. So Mike was a huge influence inadvertently, and the coolest thing was 2 years after that, I featured for him at that same bar. So that was a big moment for me. I've been doing comedy for just over 7 years now.
What made you show for this event, or not show, but
Actually, I saw Dave was here, and anywhere Dave's at within like 3 hours, if I'm not on the bill already, I try to be. And Ben had seen me before, and so luckily Ben was like, "Hey, why don't you come out and host the show? I think you're hilarious." And he asked me to do a couple of my bits specifically, so that would be fun tonight. That I'll get to pick on Ben, our promoter here at the show, a little bit tonight, and asking me to do certain things, and that's a real compliment that he actually picked something out of my set and said, "Hey, can you do this joke for me at our show?" So that's fun. I look forward to that.
what advice would you give to like young comedians?
Do it as often as you can. Do it as often as you can, and something that headliner comedians have instilled in me is like, don't be afraid. Don't be afraid. It's terrifying, yes, but as soon as you let go of that fear, you'll become more of yourself on stage. So try to get away from the fear as much as you can, as quick as you can, and the best way to do that is just to get up on stage as often as possible. So that's the best thing. Just keep writing, and don't worry about too much material, because when you're first starting out, you're not likely to be asked to do over 7 minutes anyway for the first year or so. Depends on I guess some people might be really good and start out right away, but it's more about stage time than it is quality, I guess, at first. I mean, put some thought into your jokes, but you'll notice your jokes are getting better as you grow as a comedian, obviously.
What would you say your style is?
Storyteller, that's one. I hope to just do all stories one day. I hit them hard with a quick one at the beginning, and then try to get into some personal stories and try to stick in that spot. I like personal stories. I like funny everyday things that hopefully other people could say, "Hey, that could happen to me," or "That has happened to me." So, yeah, this is gonna be awesome. I'm very excited to be here. Thank you.
Any last note or anything else you want to add?
Have fun. Love comedy. Be as good as you can.
I was born in Detroit, Michigan, and I actually started comedy in Detroit, Michigan, Royal Oak, at Mark Ridley's Comedy Castle. I started open micing there in 2003, and I actually started doing improv at the Second City in downtown Detroit in 2001, which is no longer there.
Oh wow.
It's been a while.
So have you kind of been around like everywhere in the United States, or?
Yeah, I've traveled to pretty much every single state in the United States. They're all, most are pretty terrible. Some are good. I like Michigan the best. I travel almost every week. I'm out of town, or I'm gone like 3-4 days a week doing stand-up comedy, and You know, it's kind of hard because I have a kid and stuff, but I mean, other than that, I love it, and it's a great way to make a living. It beats having a real job.
So you like Michigan? Is that mainly because you're from Michigan, or is it just
I assume anybody who likes Michigan is only because they're from Michigan.
yeah?
Probably. Yeah, I was living in LA for a while, and then my wife got pregnant with our son, and we moved home just to be around family and stuff. And it's the best move of my life. I've done more TV from here. I've done more big radio shows, done more touring. I just love being a Michigan-based comic, and it's cool to be part of this event because this is, you know, something that benefits a city in Michigan. So I love being a part of it. That's probably Detroit and Michigan has always been what's influenced me and always influenced me in my comedy and my upbringing and everything. So I feel like I'm in the center of my creativity when I'm in Michigan. I would say my style is it's a little dark and a little dirty, but it's something everybody can relate to. It's not like I don't ever try to offend anybody. I just try to have fun. So it's just my life though, and I put out there what's real to me. So I just say that's kind of my style. Is just me.
What made you like kind of get into comedy?
Well, I had spent about 5 years in high school, and I was arrested 12 times before I was 20. And I was a bit of a party animal, and I didn't take a lot of stuff seriously. And I went to Lansing Community College, and I started doing better and doing things with my life. And that made me want to get into stand-up and performing and improv. And I mean, just going into all of that changed the pathway of my life from really bad to really good. I have so many comedic influences really a lot of my stuff is older. It's like Richard Pryor and Joan Rivers and Rodney Dangerfield, Robert Schimmel, Don Rickles. A lot of that stuff made me want to get into stand-up. But really what made me want to get into comedy was older SNL, like the Dan Aykroyd, John Belushi years, and then eventually like the Chris Farley years and all that. Like that's writing a sketch and doing that kind of thing is something I always wanted to do.
What made you do this event? I mean, other than because it's in Michigan or whatever.
I decided to do it because they're paying me. I'm kidding. Well, that too. But no, Ben is actually a fan of mine and has become a friend, and he asked me to come do this event as a favor. And he's a really cool guy, so I was happy to come and do the event. So I'm happy to be here and part of it. He just came to a bunch of shows with a few people, and we've just been talking and friends over maybe a year. And he asked me to do this and get together some of my comedic friends. And I brought in my buddy from Indianapolis, and then I brought in 2 other Michigan comics.
That's cool. Just kind of getting the Michigan.
Yeah, get everybody from Michigan together, and then my friend who's rock solid and, you know, plays in Michigan a lot. I just go from place to place, and that's about it, man. Stay in hotels, do radio, write, Skype with my family. That's about it, man. It's not, people think it's much more exciting than it is. It's a lot of terrible airlines and a lot of sitting in traffic. But getting to do what I do is definitely worth it. Yeah, dude, I think 90% of the world, or at least this country, hates what they do. And I'm lucky that I actually enjoy something that I do, you know. I just did a show for Comedy Central called This Is Not Happening, which is true stories of your life. And once I started incorporating real things about me instead of just writing jokes, I found that I've grown a lot more as a comic. And I like just talking about the stuff that I know, because when you talk about your experience, other people have experienced it. You're not that different.
So you got with Comedy Central, right? How did that
Recently.
happen?
I did a show for them called Live at Gotham when I was 23 that went really well. And then a decade later, they had me back on, even though it did go well. Just one of those things where right place at right time, and I had built up a lot of stories from my life, and they decided to have me back on and tell a couple of those stories from other people.
Right.
So,
Plus, you can't offend anyone. You can just offend yourself, but you don't care.
yeah. I mean, look, it's 2017. People are offended by everything now. I can't worry about that. Like, of course somebody's not going to like me. Of course somebody's going to be offended. That's just the society we live in now. I mean, hopefully not. But, I mean, this is a different event where people kind of know what they're coming to see. But my goal is not to offend anybody.
Can you, kind of think of like any advice for like future comedians, basically?
You just can't quit. You just have to get in line. You know, I think any level of success I've had is because I've just never quit. I don't get out of line. I keep trying no matter what. And I think it goes like that for any line of work or anything that you want to do. I mean, you just have to realize there's a lot of ups and downs, there's a lot of highs and lows. Just get in, stay in line, work hard, don't be a hack, write jokes that are true to you, don't take a class, just start it and stay. A lot of people go in and out of it, a lot of people quit, a lot of people drop out and come back. I mean, you have to take it seriously, you have to be willing. I used to sleep in my car. I would just have a taser and I'd be in like a rest area, sleeping in my back seat under a blanket because I couldn't afford a hotel in the middle of like, you know, the South or like in Alabama, just because I needed to go somewhere and perform and get my name out there. And I was willing to drive anywhere to see the different areas and learn how to do it. I mean, it's just work as hard at it as you possibly can, or don't bother trying.
It's pretty cool.
Yeah, it wasn't bad, man.
Any last like thing you want to say to the viewers?
Watch my movie The King. You can get it on Amazon. I made it all in Michigan. Shot it all in Detroit in 13 days for $7,000. And that's something I'm really, really proud of. Oh, and Dino Landini's Prick Sauce is now available in 32-ounce drums. It's a thing I do online.
Okay.
I got you. It's a video thing where I sell Prick Sauce as an Italian gangster who's homosexually repressed.
Make the questions easy. I've been wanting to have a comedy show in Davison for a few years now. My wife and I attend all comedy shows out at the Holly Hotel. And so we've always thought it'd be cool to have something like this in Davison. And so I'm on city council here in Davison, so it got brought up that they needed help with raising funds to build new basketball courts out at the park. There's nowhere to play basketball at around here, so I figured, you know, it kind of gave me a reason to put on something like, you know, get a comedy show here, get to the right, you know, the right sponsors in place. You know, without Hilton Screeners, it wouldn't be possible. So a lot of it has to do with Kent and his family.
How did you start liking comedy and stuff?
I've liked comedy since I was a little kid. You know, growing up watching comedy specials on HBO, that my parents let me watch, Dana Carvey, Sinbad. I've been to so many comedy shows. Dave Chappelle, Dane Cook, Kevin Hart, all those guys, man. I've seen them all. And so we thought it would be kind of cool to go out to the Holly Hotel and be members out there. And it kind of started when I was little.
How did you get all these comedians tonight?
How do I know them?
Yeah.
All from the Holly Hotel. I've seen them all at the Holly Hotel. All of them are so awesome. From Tommy, who's the MC, he's from around the area. I believe he's from Montrose. TJ, who's from the Clawson area. I've seen him at the Holly Hotel. Brent, we actually saw in Frankenmuth, do a guest spot a couple of months ago, and he was awesome just for the 5 minutes I saw him. And then Dave is legendary to me. He was on Last Comic Standing. I've seen Dave probably 5 or 6 times out of the Holly Hotel in Frankenmuth. And he's from the Detroit area, so it's just, I don't know, I've just seen him from doing shows at the Holly Hotel mostly. Three of them are from Michigan. Brent is from Indianapolis, so he drove all the way here today. But we're lucky to have all 4 here.
What did you expect, like, for tonight, basically? From tonight?
I don't know, man. I just, you know, when we first started, when Kent was on board, you know, I knew we needed to get sponsorships to make it all happen because we had to pay the comedians to come here. So I was hoping to raise $1,000. We ended up raising in sponsorships over $8,000. So the community really got behind it, and so it's starting to fill up right now, which is awesome. I'm really anxious right now, so I'm sweating, but it's starting to fill up, so it's been good. I'm pleased and I'm excited. I just want to thank the community for coming out tonight, for getting behind this unique, crazy event, and I hope everyone has a good time tonight.